We actually have the original Thomas and Friends pilot available online for us to watch. And I'm a little bit surprised. I'm not shocked. I mean, this is over 40 years in the making. Way back in 1983 is when they originally filmed this. And this is probably one of, if not the biggest lost media item of Thomas and Friends. And I thought between the Thomas community, which is a pretty big size community on here, and then the lost media community, that one of those two would find and put it up online. But it actually was just Mattel giving it to us, which is crazy. I mean, this is great. I just wasn't really expecting that from them, especially this year. Like the 80th anniversary, I came in with such low expectations. And I have to give Mattel credit. What they've already done this year and what they have planned this year, like fantastic. Some great things are coming out, and we are going to talk about some of those things in the video. But first and foremost, I want to talk about the pilot. It's been known for years, but Down the Mine was the episode that they went with for the pilot. And it makes sense. A lot happened in this episode. It might feel random to pick like Down the Mine, but you start with Thomas and Gordon not being good with each other. Then Thomas gets in his accident. Gordon saves him. They're friends at the end. Like, we see a lot that happens. And of course, the crash, which is a big part of Thomas and Friends. I think this was a smart episode to pick. I don't know why. I mean, we knew Ringo Starr. Like, most people probably know, Britt Allcroft heard Ringo Starr's voice, and she knew that had to be the voice for Thomas. So it's a little bit like, it just feels like it shouldn't be Ringo narrating a pilot, but it makes sense. That's the direction they wanted to go for. It makes sense to bring in Ringo. You want to make a good first impression for whoever you're gonna try and get your show to be picked up with. Overall, like, a really strong episode, really strongly filmed too. Like, of course there's differences between the pilot and what the actual Down the Mine was, but they weren't that big of differences. You of course have the models, you know, Thomas and Gordon. Gordon especially, you know, we've seen Thomas for years, so maybe he's just less of a surprise, but Gordon definitely feels more like a model that you could have bought in the stores versus something unique that is a real engine, at least probably to a child's perspective. But, you know, for a pilot, obviously that's what you want to go with. They didn't have Thomas connected to Annie and Clarabelle, and that's because Annie had some dialogue in the episode. And, I mean, it works in the sense of a pilot. Obviously, in the show itself, there's a lot of close-up shots of characters on Sodor, and we did get that with Sir Topham Hatt and whatnot. But you know, it's just, that's a little small detail that, you know, changes from the pilot to the actual episode. And the music, like, not that the music was bad, it was just a lot more boring, I guess, than what we get from the actual show itself, which again makes sense. You don't want to throw a lot of time and money into making this great soundtrack for a pilot that might not even get picked up. But it was still cool to see, like, an episode of Thomas with just way different music than what we're used to. The crash itself with Thomas was really good. Arguably, I'd say it was better than the crash we see in the actual Down the Mine episode. So they did a really good job. And I think that's got to be something that they've spent the most time working on, because a crash like that, you know, that's the main part of the episode right there. You really want to make a good impression. Like, overall, I can't say enough good about how they filmed this pilot. Like, such great work. I think it's worth noting, you know, there's a lot of pilots like this episode that were lost for a long time that end up getting released, and sometimes you see them and you're like, makes sense that they didn't get picked up. Others, it like makes total sense. I think of the original How I Met Your Dad pilot. As much as I love How I Met Your Mother, that wasn't a great pilot. I can see why that show wasn't picked up, but I watched this pilot, it's like, of course this show was picked up. And it's weird because I feel like a lot of times pilots, especially for something like this, you know, just is so much different from what we get with the actual show. And I mean, of course, there were some obvious differences throughout this, but I feel like had they just decided to go with this as Down the Mine, I mean, it would have stood out a little bit, but I don't think it would have been that different. Like, I think I just can't stress enough how well they filmed this, because it doesn't seem like they did too much more than what they were already going for in this pilot. So, I mean, really well done by the team, because they just knew what they wanted. They were able to execute it and do well. So when it was time to actually start filming the show, they didn't have to change too much. I just think that really shows how well produced, how well filmed, how everything was about this, that they were able to mostly continue how they filmed the pilot with how they filmed the show. So beyond the pilot, You look at this year, it's the 80th anniversary year. I know I came in with very low expectations, and the Thomas Wooden Railway line, it looked like it was going to be canceled, and it sounds like it is officially going to be canceled now. So that wasn't anything to be looking forward to about this year, but there's been a lot of merchandise that's been coming out. Sounds like All Engines Go is probably going to be done. I think it either already aired its last episode or its last episode's coming out sometime this year. So that ending, it just gave even more question marks to what the future could be. But with this pilot coming out, they have a podcast coming out. A lot of big names who were involved with the show are coming back for it, and to be involved with whatever they're doing in the future for Thomas, which is just crazy. Like, I didn't expect all of this to happen, but it is such a pleasant surprise. I think arguably the most exciting part is this little statement. The excitement does not stop here. In 2026, Thomas and Friends is ready for a thrilling new journey that is set to delight fans old and new. And I just can't believe we're living in this world with what Mattel's doing right now. I don't know if it has anything to do with the tariffs that are going on in the real world or what, but it just feels like Mattel, since they've been in charge of this brand, have constantly made decisions for the worse off of Thomas and Friends. And I feel like we're finally starting to see them actually make some decent decisions. Like old and new fans, I feel like anytime Thomas is rebranded over the years, it's just to a younger audience. And I think for the first time ever, we're actually going to see the older audience in mind, which can sound like it's a bad idea on paper, but you look at like just about every show that was popular, like in the 90s especially, having a chance to be rebooted or whatnot. Like the fact that Thomas and Friends, we are in 2025 and this is finally going to happen to Thomas and Friends, I can't believe it's taken this long. I think there's a lot of directions Mattel could go in with whatever Thomas is going to be next year. I think this is something that they would not do anything more of besides like a one-off, but I think it would be really cool to have models again, like actual models, and make an episode out of it. It's just, I think it'd be fun to do more than that. With how the world is today, it just does not financially make sense, probably to even invest the money into that. But it's one of those things that I could see being a big thing on social media that trends for a little bit, and that might be enough to justify the time and money that would be spent to create actual models of these engines. Beyond that, it'd be weird. I mean, I know the CGI series has been just done for a few years now, but it would feel weird to go like pretend like, oh, we're now doing season 25. I feel like if they ever went back to that style, which I'm not saying they won't, but if they do, it can't just feel like season 25. It needs to feel like it's starting over with season 1, but I don't know how they do that. Like, I feel like a decent compromise, but I'm worried if it would actually look good or not, would be to try and make models in CGI and not have them be like what they were in CGI. And I don't know that world too much to understand, like, could you make them, will they look that much different than what we've already got in CGI? Because they might not. This might not even be worth the suggestion. I don't know. But I feel like that'd be a nice compromise where you don't have to make the models, but you're also recognizing the model series and can go back to it. If that's just not the case, I feel like they really just need a character reboot. They need to decide what they want for characters. And I mean, of course, you have problems that you had back in like the 80s and 90s when the show was airing of like female characters, right? Because there's not a lot of female characters on the show. That's why Emily got added to the STEAM team, right? So, and I think in today's world, that's more important than it ever was before. So I don't know the best way to go about that, but I'm excited to see what Mattel's going to try here. And if you guys have any ideas for how you would reboot Thomas, I'd love to see you talk about them in the comments section below, because I feel like there's just so many different ways to go, and I'd love to see what other people are thinking for the show. But beyond that for a second, I feel like every one of these anniversary years, 5 years ago for the 75th, they had some specials. Are we going to get anything like that? I feel like, ironically, a pilot to whatever 2026 is could be a good way to do that, and maybe I think it'd be nice to do it more like their hour-long specials or movies, whatever you want to call that, like we used to get back in the day. To do something like that to really get us a head start into what 2026 will look like for whatever this new Thomas and Friends is going to be. But just something in general, because right now, I mean, obviously correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think they have anything like that planned this year. I don't think there's really any specials that are coming out other than like finishing All Engines Go, which is disappointing. Thomas and Friends, they've really cared about these anniversary years, and rightfully so. A lot of franchises don't get to 80 years, and yet here we are for Thomas. So I'm very excited to see what's going to come out, but like I said, and I can't keep stressing enough, I actually feel like there's potentially a bright future for Thomas and Mattel. And I was kind of at the point where I felt like if Thomas and Friends has a bright future, it's not under Mattel's banner. So the fact that Mattel's like finally getting it together, like I can't congratulate them enough. But those are my thoughts on the pilot and all the news we've heard thus far about the 80th anniversary this year. You know, I've been in this community since 2008, and I'll be honest, this might be the best time to be a fan of Thomas and Friends. I feel like potentially the first time ever Mattel's making some really good moves about this franchise. I feel really good about its future right now, and I hope it stays that way. I'm really excited to see what the rest of 2025 is for this franchise and what they have planned for 2026. So please tell me what you think in the comments section below and subscribe for more. Thank you for watching. This is Percy number 6. I hope you have a great day.